Well, hello, students. We are now in Wednesday, Learning Objective 10-3. So, this learning objective is to identify the tasks in staffing a company and discussing ways in which organizations recruit and select new employees. Hold on a second. I mean, it's kind of funny sometimes. You have I don't know, I have a cat that actually opens doors, and I don't want to get into it. Anyway, we already talked a little bit about writing a job description and also doing a job analysis prior to writing the job description, and then figuring out next, how do we staff these people to fit these perfect jobs? How do we recruit them? How do we select them? So, in staffing the organization, when managers have determined that new employees are needed and understand the legal context in which they operate, they can turn their attention to recruiting and hiring the right mix of people. So essentially, the recruiting and hiring involves two processes. The first one is acquiring new employees from outside the company, and two, promoting current employees from within. Both external and internal staffing, however, start with effective recruiting. So, the first thing I'd like to talk about is recruiting employees. So, recruiting, by definition, recruiting is the process of attracting qualified persons to apply for the jobs that are open. Recruiting decisions go both ways. An organization is recruiting an employee while the prospective employee is selecting a job. Okay, so now that breaks down into, as you're following along in your book, internal recruiting and external recruiting. Internal recruiting means considering present employees as candidates for openings, and external recruiting is external, it involves attracting people outside of the organization to apply for jobs when you don't have the resources internally to hire the right candidates. Especially when you're rewriting a job description based on organizational needs, you don't always have the right candidates internally to fulfill those needs. We all know that hiring the wrong employee can be a very costly error. Companies look to strive for a good person fit for the job. So one tool used in the realistic job preview that provides the applicant with the real picture of what performing the available job would be like. Okay, so reflect on that a minute. So now let's go from recruiting employees to selecting employees. The intent of the selection process is to gather from applicants the information that will predict their job success, and then to hire the candidates who are likely to be most successful. Most employers don't have a crystal ball. They can only go by the credentials that they see and what an individual would potentially do. So the person getting the job is at risk because they don't know if they're going to work out during the probationary period. And the employer that's offering the job is also taking a risk because they don't necessarily know what's on paper and the way people project themselves when they're in the hiring process are actually that proficient as they say. So when we go into the selecting employees for the job, you always look to see what is going to predict their job success and who will likely to be most successful. So we start with the application form, gathering all the information, the work history, the educational background of the person, and other types of job related data. Or, depending on the type of job, we could do tests, different types of testing. Some jobs even use psychological testing. That's tests of the ability, skill, and aptitude, or knowledge relevant to a particular job come together as being the best predictors of job success. Although we can give tests of general intelligence or personality that are useful as well. So, the other thing is interviews. In a structured interview, questions are written in advance, and all interviewers follow the same question list. It's in a template, structured interviews, right? And they give that same question list to each candidate. And an unstructured interview, questions vary with the candidate's background. So it depends on the type of a company that they're applying for with the job, and it all depends on what the certain position requires. And that's the type of interview you will accommodate. More than likely, if there are upper level positions, the interview would be more unstructured based on the candidate's credentials and potential to be successful. Other techniques that are used, organizations often require applicants to take physicals and drug tests. So, for example, like construction work and that type of thing. Or if you have to lift so many pounds. So the more physical risk, the more types of jobs, like construction jobs, as I just mentioned, where you're working on these buildings and stuff. You don't want someone that's going to test positive for drugs because they could put themselves as well as other employees in jeopardy should there be a problem in that area. So that is really the end of phase one here in this section on 10.3. And the thing that I want to hone in on is that new employees are found both internally and externally in the recruitment process. And the second point is that all applicant information gathered in the selection process can be used to predict job success. That's it for phase one.